Ryan Botterill scored 27 seconds apart in the first period as Wisconsin would defeat North Dakota 2-1 yesterday and put the Badgers in the Frozen Four title game, the first time since 2010. Here's more from head coach Mike Hastings.
We knew North Dakota would be a real difficult out. They were. And at this time, you just got to find a way to survive and move on.
And that they did as goalie Daniel Hauser stopped 21 shots for the Badgers, including a save through traffic while sitting down 6-on-5 with 2:05 left in the game. The Badgers defense also limited a North Dakota offense that entered the game third nationally in scoring, while the Badgers had the Hawks go 0 for 5 on the power play, including a 5-on-3 in the second period. Up next, the Badgers will face Denver in the championship, 4:30 faceoff Saturday from Las Vegas. Turning to the Brewers, they had yesterday off. They'll now host the Washington Nationals for a 6:10 first pitch. The Brewers currently sit first in the National League with a record of 8-4 and are looking to bounce back after they lost their first series of the season, last series against the Boston Red Sox.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
The Milwaukee Bucks have 2 regular season games remaining. Tonight, their home finale against the Brooklyn Nets. That'll be at 7 o'clock. Then Sunday on the road against the Philadelphia 76ers. And finally, the Green Bay Packers are gearing up for the NFL Draft. We're less than 2 weeks away. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Evo.
Turnover, watch out, off the bench, shot, score! Oh, baby! Simon says, 1-0 Badgers. And wired that one in, and here they come again. Botterill shot, score! Ryan Botterill, 10th goal of the year. 2-0 Badgers. North Dakota has to hurry. Rickwood, one more chance. Oh, for the net. Wisconsin moves on.
Finding a way to get it done, because at this time of the season, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be Mona Lisa, right? You just got to find a way to make sure that you're living for another day.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Some sound from last night, late into the afternoon, earlier in the evening. Wisconsin beating North Dakota. I kept saying Notre Dame during Thorson and Heilprin last night. We watched the conclusion at Monk's in Sun Prairie. It was very fun. Corey and Marshall very fired up. Some listeners, lots of red in the bar area at Monk's. It was very fun last night out in Sun Prairie. So Wisconsin will play for the national championship tomorrow night out in Las Vegas. We can certainly discuss that tonight. I had to pull out the Badger hoodie if you're watching on the live stream and on the Wisco Sports Zone app. Maybe it was because nothing else was clean. Maybe a little bit about school spirit, state spirit, Wisco spirit. And I need to do laundry, and this was one of the remaining clean things I had. So we can talk hockey throughout the night. I'm not going to be great at leading that conversation, but I will be more than happy to be the point guard and to take your calls and to let you share your takes and your thoughts on last night's game. And then tomorrow, Wisconsin has the opportunity to win the national title in both men's and women's hockey. It would be pretty cool. And I think if I saw correctly, the last time that happened was Wisconsin. The last time that the men's team won a national title, which is pretty cool. Mark Johnson, clearly the women's team is there a bunch. Todd Milewski, the State Journal, Badger Extra, going to be here at 4:30. So he's out in Vegas. He's covering the thing. He just got out of the press conferences and some practices earlier today. So we'll get him and see if there's any updates. And then we can pick his brain on last night and ask him about tomorrow night's matchup. So we do have a guest. We have an expert. I'll ask him the bare bones questions and let him kind of drive the car for 10 or 12 minutes. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I can bring in an expert guest and I can take your calls. I also have a Bucks thing that I want to discuss, but we start tonight with a little breaking news. The Packers have traded Dontayvian Wicks within the last 20, 30 minutes here. They've traded him to the Eagles in exchange for, and I want to make sure I get this right, sometimes these trades breakdown can be a little complicated, a little twisted. They've traded Dontayvian Wicks to the Philadelphia Eagles, as per Adam Schefter, in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round pick. So the Packers are getting 2 picks and sending no picks back. I'm reading this correctly, right? Because a lot of times, just for example, the Packers will make a trade. They get a 5th and they send a 6th. So, it's a late round swap. The way I'm reading this correctly, the Packers get 2 picks. They get a 5th-round pick in this year's draft in 2 weeks from last night, and a 6th-round pick in 2027. Dontayvian Wicks has signed a 1-year extension with the Eagles for $12.5 million. I don't really know. So he feels as though he has a little bit more contract security. He probably felt like he needed some more money or something. I don't know. We don't need to focus on the contract part of it. I think for a player who is reading the tea leaves, reading in between lines, probably not thrilled with his role, or maybe more accurately phrased, probably not thrilled with his situation in Green Bay. I don't know that Dontayvian Wicks, if he was even capable of being a little rational, right? And sometimes these athletes, it's tough for them to look at the situation, understandably so, and be rational or be sensible, practical, right? Because if Dontayvian Wicks here's how he's feeling. I was drafted in the 5th round years ago, and I've always been behind guys. I've never had a chance to strut my stuff. I've never had a chance to showcase myself, and I'm coming up on a contract, and I'm buried on a team. I'm buried in a situation here where I'm not going to be able to make a nice contract. He's unhappy about that. I totally get it. Unhappy with his situation. This is why I'm discerning between situation and role. I get him being unhappy with his situation. It's a little silly for him to be unhappy with his role, which again, for him is difficult, but us on the outside looking in say, well, Christian Watson's better. Romeo Doubs has been better. Tucker Kraft is better. He's getting more targets. Matthew Golden was just drafted in the 1st round, and I think has a great opportunity to be better. So again, his situation is tough. He's been in a tough situation. I don't think he can look Matt LaFleur and the Packers in the eye and say, well, I should be getting all the targets. Look who's around you. So I don't know exactly how much of a stink Dontayvian Wicks has been maybe making behind the scenes. We heard from Matt LaFleur at the coaches' meetings in Phoenix. In Phoenix, not in Sedona. Some coaches made their way up to Sedona, as we learned this week. I believe Matt LaFleur just stayed in Phoenix, and we learned from him that some players were unhappy with their roles, and that affected the team. I feel like it would be safe to assume Dontayvian Wicks probably wasn't thrilled with his role, or again, not thrilled with his situation. Maybe he was a great soldier. Maybe he was a great sport. He practiced hard. He did all of the things. Or maybe he moped a little bit, or maybe there was some frustration, or maybe he wasn't completely and totally locked in and dialed in to show up to work every day. Who knows? But the Packers now probably set to sign Christian Watson to an extension, probably set to give Matthew Golden a lot more, I hope, opportunities and targets. Tucker Kraft coming back. He's maybe just straight up their best player on offense and a huge part of their pass catching game. Josh Jacobs getting a lot of carries. You look at the thing and say, well, Dontayvian Wicks with 1 year left on his deal, a depth piece you'd like to keep. Sure. Like I like him a lot as a wide receiver 4 or 5. I like him more than Savion Williams or Bo Melton, but will he, perform and practice and behave on a level that makes it worth it to keep him basically as a depth piece? Probably not. I would love to know if behind closed doors, Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst are saying, all right, so that's a headache we don't have to worry about anymore. That's a guy, okay, I'm glad that's over with. I'm glad that's done. Are they saying, phew, I'm glad we found a home for him. I'm glad we can move on and reshape this room? Or are they behind closed doors saying, great player, really wish we didn't have to do that, but the salary of all these guys, the contracts of all these guys, recent draft picks, kind of forced to do it. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if the Packers feel as though they're sending out a player with great upside who they really would have loved to keep, or if they're kind of like, all right, that's done and dealt with now. Now we can move on. I wonder. Because to trade him to a conference rival, that's not nothing. This is also such a Philadelphia Eagles move. This is such a Howie Roseman move. I can think of 2 or 3 players off the top of my head. The Eagles acquired Jahan Dotson, who had a year or 2 left on his deal. Took a shot on him. Took a shot a little bit longer ago on Dorial Green-Beckham. I believe John Mechie was a player they brought in. So Howie Roseman likes to do this at the bottom of his wide receiver depth chart. Say, okay, where's a guy who's flashed elsewhere, drafted elsewhere, flashed elsewhere, never been a consistent star elsewhere, a consistent stud elsewhere, but a guy who's shown flashes. Maybe we can bring him in for a year or two. He'll play at a high level, be our wide receiver 3 or 4. And maybe they go on and get a big contract elsewhere, but they're a great player and they help us win for a year. I think it's a sensible, reasonable way to approach the position. Some of those players have moved the needle for Philly. I think Jahan Dotson was good here and there. Dorial Green-Beckham was not. So sometimes it doesn't work, but it's a 5th this year and a 6th next year. And if the Eagles are preparing to move A.J. Brown, and I kind of think they just have to, maybe not, we'll see. But if they're preparing to move A.J. Brown, they're going to have draft capital coming back in. So if the Eagles move A.J. Brown for what, it doesn't even matter. Let's say they move him for a 2nd and a 4th, or a 1st, or 2/3. Okay, well, you're getting the Eagles will be getting some capital back. So it's a little bit less painful to give up a 5th and a 6th between 2 drafts. For a guy, even if he's only there for a year, he's going to make $13 million and he's wide receiver 3. So it's a pretty sensible move for the Eagles. I wonder if the Packers behind closed doors are relieved, saying, all right, now we can move on. Now, I'm glad we were able to find that guy home. Or maybe even, more dramatic, thank God we got that guy out of the building. Because maybe he was some sort of a head case. Maybe I feel fairly certain in assuming he was unhappy with his role. I don't know in what ways that manifested. There's a difference between being frustrated and maybe a little mopey. That's understandable. That's human nature, especially because he was hurt last year. There's a difference in being a little frustrated and a little mopey and being a complete and total, suck around the building where, that guy again, he's just miserable and you can tell he doesn't want to be there and he's not practicing hard. I don't know, but I feel fairly confident in assuming he wasn't happy with his role. So are the Packers relieved? They're like, thank God we got rid of that guy. He's out of here. Or behind closed doors, they're like, would have loved to keep him. Would have wished it worked. I wonder how the Packers view him internally as they ship him out the door. He's a guy who flashed at a high level. I also would, I'd love to see what he would have looked like this last year if he was healthy throughout. I feel that way about Lucas Van Ness, right? There's always a player where it's like, man, I wonder what we'd be saying about them, or I wonder what we'd be saying this offseason had that player been healthy for, the full 17 games. I don't even know how many games Dontayvian Wicks played, but he started late because he had a calf, and then I think he re-aggravated it later. But he had a great game against the Lions. That in and of itself was probably enough for a team to say, all right, there's a distressed asset, literally. So we'll acquire him. So the Packers end up with an extra pick. Tom Silverstein of the Journal Sentinel broke it down. I bookmarked it here. Just a breakdown of the assets that are changing hands. Packers pick up $2.6 million in cap space with Wicks' departure. He counts as $75,000 in dead money. The Packers are almost $26 million under the cap. They have 8 draft picks this year and should have 10 next year, including 3/4, 2/5, and 3/6 potentially. Now they could trade some of those guys. So a nice little deal for the Packers, and I think a nice little deal for the Eagles too. Maybe as the show moves along, we can go back and forth a little bit about how we feel now about Jayden Reed's future, because that's a big part of this. I think Jayden Reed is far from perfect, but all of the concerns that I have about Jayden Reed, I also have about Dontayvian Wicks, and they're probably even more pronounced with Dontayvian Wicks. Like, well, I like Jayden Reed, but he struggles with drops. Well, so does Wicks. I like Jayden Reed, but he's banged up a lot. Well, so is Dontayvian Wicks. So I'm interested to see now how the Packers proceed. Usage with Golden, a contract with Jayden Reed, and just generally speaking, how they feel about Savion Williams, because I have no clue what's going on with that guy. The Packers liked him enough to draft him in the 3rd round. They have to internally still feel pretty good about him and think he can be a big part of this offense. I don't know. Let's take a call here. It's a Free Phones Friday, so you can jump in here before our first break. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Bills, how we living? Happy Friday.
I am well, Vagabond John. I heard this morning you're not getting out to Las Vegas. I'm sorry to hear that. A little too expensive.
A little too pricey. So what do good folks in Wisconsin do when they can't afford to leave the state? We go to the Wisconsin. No, I'm just kidding. We are we're en route to Madison because
Nice.
I figured if you can't watch the game in Vegas, you might as well go to the hometown. Maybe make our way down even to the Red Shed and catch a game there.
Okay.
We're actually currently at your favorite spot in the entire state, right?
Ooh.
When the road splits and you have to choose whether to go to Eau Claire, to La Crosse.
Mhm.
The interesting part is the opposite direction is a very easy choice.
Oh, it's a very simple choice. What I think right is like Albert Lee, and left is Wisconsin Dells. Like it's the inverse side is a much less sexy decision.
Yeah, so we're just going to be cruising right on through there. Some tough traffic out here, though, on the road. So that's the traffic report. But hey, I like your analysis there of Wicks. He is when people talk about the term replacement player, Dontayvian Wicks personifies replacement player.
All
There
right.
are a billion dudes in the NFL that can do everything Dontayvian Wicks can do. Good for the Eagles for picking him up. I know there's a lot of back channels. I'm sure at the day drinking day that all the coaches just had, Matt LaFleur was like, yeah, he's kind of a crazy head case sometimes, but he's talented.
I wonder. I'm for sure that he was unhappy on some level. He could be the nicest guy ever, or he could be a complete and total disaster, and the Packers just hit it well. I don't know, so I don't want to assume that. You know what I mean? I want to be fair at least.
Yeah, and if you're Matt LaFleur, maybe you're doing this guy is solid. Get him out of the door, get him so where he can get opportunities. So I think all that is good. The part that obviously Packer fans we should be hyped about is going into this draft without a first-round pick. Now we have one more pick impact this month. Which is cash to value, right? When you spend something, you get rid of something. How soon until it returns value?
Oh yeah.
We're going to really use this fifth-round pick, whether you want to move up, and get a guy that you love in the second round or third round. You want to move up a couple picks, or you just want another body to throw the defensive line or the offensive line. A fifth-round pick is nothing to shake a fist at. Back in my day when I was defending defensive coordinators, we had to start seventh-round rookies against Patrick Mahomes. So who knows what we're going to get with that fifth-round pick? But
I knew
that's
you were
all I
going to
got,
say
man.
that.
Have a good weekend.
Great call, Vagabond John. And I think that last point I should reiterate before we take our break. It's a good one. An extra fifth-round pick is not nothing, especially considering the Packers don't have a first. That's an extra shot at an O-lineman, D-lineman, or a corner. Or, it doesn't have to be those positions, but that's where my mind goes. An extra fifth and an extra shot to take on a toolsy edge rusher, a big fat guy in the middle of the D-line, a corner, an O-line, an interior O-lineman. They've done well on day 3 picks on the O-line. That's not nothing. So I'm not going to act like a fifth-round pick is it demands cartwheels and a party, but it's not nothing. So that's a nice little deal. And I think maybe the Packers on some level could have been doing Dontayvian Wicks a solid as well. He could be a massive head case. Maybe the Packers, they couldn't wait to get him out of there. Maybe. Or maybe he was a good soldier and the Packers are like, we're going to do right by you. This isn't going to work for us. We have other guys we want to play, and sending him to a place with Jonathan Gannon, who was just in Green Bay, an offense in Philly. Well, they're talented. Good luck with Jalen Hurts, but it could be worse places. He could be going to the Jets. So it's a very interesting trade to me, even though the compensation is a fifth and a sixth between two drafts. I'll take more of your calls on this or anything else. We can get into Badger hockey. Todd Milewski from the State Journal and Badger Extra is going to be here at 4:35, so we'll bring in an expert as well. But to you, right after this, 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bill. Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. It's the Wisco Sports Show. A hilarious name for a show this week of all weeks. It's a Wisco weekend at American Family Field. Brewers, social media, and people blasting all sorts of pictures from the ballpark. Looks cool. I don't mind the jerseys. They're not my favorite, but they're pretty cool. So we don't need to get back into jersey discourse. The Packers have traded Dontayvian Wicks to the Eagles. I think it's a very interesting trade, not because I think the Packers will be significantly worse without Wicks, and I don't think the Eagles will be significantly better with him. It's the moving pieces that revolve around this deal. So the Packers get a 5th this year and a 6th next year. It's nothing crazy, but a 5th round pick in 2 weeks now to help this upcoming team with a shot at an extra player on the D line or the O line or at corner. That's not nothing. That's not nothing. It's not everything. It's not the 6th overall pick in the draft or something crazy like that, which Brian Gutekunst would, probably spend on some toolsy Big Ten edge rusher who had little to no college production anyway. So I don't want the 6th overall pick in the draft. No, thank you. An extra 5th. You can take an extra shot at a pass rusher, O-line, corner. It's not nothing, especially for a team that doesn't have a first-round pick this year. I question what this means for the outlook of the rest of the Packers wide receiver room. Watson, I think, will get extended this offseason, so let's set him to the side. The other players in that room are Matthew Golden. He's going into year 2. Nothing to be done about that contract. That's more of a question of targets and target share. And I think he'll, with no Romeo Doubs, no Dontayvian Wicks, he's just going to get more balls to come his way. I mean, in theory, I guess Bo Melton could play a ton and get a bunch of targets, but I have a hard time envisioning a scenario that Matthew Golden just doesn't get more targets based on the departure of Romeo Doubs, Dontayvian Wicks. So Matthew Golden will just get more catches. The other guys, Savion Williams, let's start with him. I don't really know what to do with him. He's probably wide receiver 4, but a kind of a specific player to have as your wide receiver 4 in front of Bo Melton, assuming they don't draft or sign anyone. Or Sky Moore, of course, I guess could be wide receiver 5. I'd like him on this team. Jaden Reed is the most interesting piece. I don't know if the Packers view him as a player they want to extend long-term. I know Packers fans really like Jaden Reed. And I think he's fine. I think he's good. I thought Dontayvian Wicks was fine and good. The biggest issues with Wicks were inconsistency, drops, and injuries. Well, I think Jaden Reed has all of those problems too. I think Jaden Reed's banged up a lot and hurt a lot. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm not saying that will continue. But up until now, this point of his career, he's banged up a lot for a smaller player. Okay, it's not like a freak injury here and there. He's small and he takes a beating. He drops passes. He drops a lot of passes. I don't trust his hands. Dropped some of Jordan Love's best throws in the Lions game and then the Commanders game. Of course, the one that he caught was the one that he got hurt on, and it came back because of penalty. That touchdown over the shoulder by the pylon on Thursday night against the Commanders. Great catch. Of course he made it. That was the one that didn't count, and then he got hurt to boot. And he comes back and he's fine. But the biggest moment of his season once he came back from injury to me was dropping that pass in the playoff game against the Bears. So, I know folks like Jaden Reed more than Dontayvian Wicks, and I do too, I guess. It's not that much more. All of the concerns that I have about Dontayvian Wicks, I also kind of have about Jaden Reed. Now, they're probably lesser with Jaden Reed. He's been hurt less and he's been less inconsistent. and he's had fewer drops, although I thought Dontayvian Wicks, drops would pop up here and there, but the second half of last year was pretty good. And then this year, I think was pretty darn good. I don't remember any significant drops. I remember drops by Dobbs and by Reed. I don't remember any this year by Dontayvian Wicks. And he helped him win a game in Detroit. I just don't know if Jaden Reed is the type of player the Packers should use a long-term extension on. But I don't know that they would have kept Wicks anyways. You know what I mean? Like, well, we're not going to extend Jaden Reed, so we better keep Dontayvian Wicks. Dontayvian Wicks is just another player you're not going to extend. So I don't know that this trade should completely and totally wholesale change the way the Packers feel about Reed moving forward in his contract situation. I hope the Packers don't feel as though they have to keep Reed because they dealt Wicks. Christian Watson will be under contract. Matthew Golden will be here, and unless he totally... So I think Matthew Golden's good. So that's a part of your room moving forward. Tucker Kraft. Savion Williams is an interesting one. The Packers liked him enough to take him in the third round. I have to feel that internally they still like him quite a bit. I don't know. This year is going to be a fascinating litmus test. It's one of the Packers I'm most interested to watch this upcoming year, I think. And that'll be a segment for this summer. We'll talk about the players who have the most to prove, or, the players we're most excited to see. I think I'm just generally curious about what Savion Williams is and what the Packers think he can be. They used him as a sweep guy, and I guess he was a good yards after the catch guy, but it's not like he was a returner in college. He was actually a down-the-field jump ball guy. Very weird combination of skills. And we talked about that with Mike Renner when they first drafted him. I remember, I'm like, Mike, so you're telling me the combination of traits this guy has, amazing jump ball guy and great yards after the catch guy. Those two things typically don't go together in the same player. That's not a skill set you often see in one player. So I'm fascinated by Savion Williams. And if he comes out and looks like the player that the Packers envisioned when they drafted him, he's really good and he's a wide receiver 3, well, then they probably don't need to extend Jaden Reed. Wouldn't that be a dream? I'm just, I am unsure. My guess is that Mike Clemens is calling in. Mike Clemens, is that you?
It is. On my way to cover the Bucks, but I just wanted to give you a couple of thoughts in terms of the trade of Dontayvian Wicks to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can we do it in 2 minutes? Can we turbo this? Because I got to get to Todd Milewski. We're going to talk Badgers hockey at the bottom of the hour here. Can we do 2 quick minutes?
You bet.
What do you think?
I'm okay with it because we know about Dontayvian's availability. It was 2 years ago that Matt LaFleur said, "Okay, now don't make a big deal out of this. But we love the way this guy releases from the line of scrimmage, the way he starts his routes, the variety of moves he's got. It just sort of came naturally." And he threw out that name, Davante Adams. And so we looked at him in a different way. And he's had some games where he had 6 or 7 catches, and then he's out for 2 or 3 weeks with some kind of an injury. So for the Packers, listen, they're going to draft some more receivers in a couple of weeks. This means Matthew Golden is definitely going to get to see the ball more this coming year. And as for Dontayvian, who's a good player, I don't think he's going to ascend to the level that Davante Adams did. Because you remember, for 2 or 3 years, Davante Adams sat behind Jordy Nelson, and it wasn't until Jordy had the torn ACL and McCarthy finally put the lean on the Packers quarterback and said, "You got to throw to 17, man." And that's where there was basically that changeover. I don't think Wicks is going to get to that level ever. But in the meantime, the Eagles are picking up his tab. He's getting a 1-year deal for $12.5 million. Green Bay was not going to sign Wicks to that.
Yeah. Can you give me 30 to 60 seconds on what kind of a personality or I'm sure he was frustrated with his role. That's understandable. In what ways maybe did that present this last season? Was he an issue behind the scenes at all?
Not to my knowledge at all. Good kid, humble. But maybe he hit his ceiling in terms of football IQ. I don't know. I know that Jason Vrabel is a darn good receivers coach, but I didn't pick up that he was finding the little nuances that you do after 3-4 years in LaFleur's system. So, and that, we'll see what the Eagles do with it. Does this open the door for the A.J. Brown situation? I don't know. But whatever the case, to get those picks for Goody, and of course, he's always looking for more players to come off the shelf and fill other needs. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good move by Green Bay today.
Hey, Mike, I'd love to get to the Bucks game to cover it with you. Too late to apply for a press pass, but I saw the tickets are available for like $14-15. So maybe I'll just grab one and come down there.
They'll probably be waving in for free after the first quarter.
They'll open up the doors.
Hey, listen, I'm going down there to talk to it's Doc Rivers, man. He's saying goodbye. I mean, you got a coach who says, I'd like to spend more time with my grandkids.
Yeah.
Or a couple of weeks ago, like, hey, how come Darvin Ham, your assistant, is he like running the game in the fourth quarter? Yes, because I want the world to see this guy is an NBA head coach, and he should be a head coach somewhere. Okay, thanks, Doc. That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The filter has been removed, so go take advantage of that, Mike. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Grant.
Mike Clemens headed down to a Fiserv Forum. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Clemens NFL. Appreciate his quick insight. We got to go because Todd Milewski is going to join us. He's out in Las Vegas for the Frozen Four State Journal Badger Extra. We'll talk about the national championship game coming up tomorrow night between Wisconsin and Denver. Thank God it's not Michigan. I can sleep better tonight knowing that. We'll be right back with Todd on the other side.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
We knew North Dakota would be a real difficult out, and they were. And at this time, you just got to find a way to survive and move on.
Mike Hastings, last night, the Badgers beating North Dakota, holding on 2-1 as North Dakota was really, they got close. They had some looks. Pulled the goalie there at the end, and Wisconsin held on. Survive in advance. They will play Denver tomorrow night. Thought we'd bring in an expert. He's contributed a little bit to Bill's show over the last couple of weeks and months because the girls hockey team went on a run. Now the fellas are eyeing up a national championship of their own. Todd Milewski's here, the State Journal and Badger Extra out in Las Vegas. So 2 goals in like 30 seconds, Todd. I think it was 27 seconds. Played that whole first period down on North Dakota's end. What did that first period last night tell you about Wisconsin's mindset, their game plan, that matchup? Like, what did that first period tell you about the team last night?
Well, we always wonder in these situations how that the week off in between the regionals and the Frozen Four impacts teams. And, you know, sometimes you get just tired of practicing and seeing your own players and everything like that. And it gets you a little rusty, but there was nothing like that for the Badgers, and so that was a real credit to how they spent the basically 10 days between when they earned their spot in Vegas and when they took the ice here. They did a really good job with that and in spending that time well and obviously being ready for what was going to be a really tough game for them. I mean, North Dakota is a really, really good team, really complete, good goaltending, just heavy physical guys, and for the first period of that game last night, the Badgers were dictating, and so that was really important that they played that first period the way that they needed to, and it turned out to be 2 goals and got some pretty good just kind of up possession for that period to kind of set the tone.
Well, and maybe this is just a college hockey thing. I am not an expert at all. I watch a little NHL, so maybe this is just a college hockey thing that I'm unaware of, but it seems like Wisconsin's scoring chances just kind of developed out of nowhere. Like they didn't really set up and get many great looks on the power play. Both goals just kind of appeared. Is that something that you've noticed with this team where they can just grab a loose puck and all of a sudden they're on top of a goaltender? Or is that a product of college hockey? Is that a product of the way that first period played out? I found that interesting last night.
I think you're right in that you can get, 14, 15 great chances and none of them go in, but maybe you get the one that isn't necessarily a great chance, and if it goes in, that's just as good, right? Because they're still controlling the play. They were doing what they needed to do, but the first goal was a really good play by Zelenoff to force a turnover down deep. Simon Tassi is racing off the bench. Just been on the ice 3 seconds when he gets the puck, and Zelenoff finds him. Hits the top the crossbar and goes in. So that's 1-0. And then the next shift is just another kind of wacky play where they recycle the puck out of the D zone. Ben Dexheimer makes a really nice pass up the middle into some open ice for Ryan Botterill, who gets a step behind the defense and scores. And bang, bang, a couple of plays that kind of come out of nowhere. You're right. And it doesn't always have to be the big build up. It can sometimes just be the quick strike that if you make the most of it, off you go.
So the second period was scoreless, which I found really funny because Wisconsin had, 2, 3, 4 really good looks and none of them went. And Notre Dame, I don't know how many shots they had in the second period. They had more shots. Most of that period was played in front of Wisconsin's net. Neither team scored. Notre Dame had a 2-minute 5-on-3. I felt like that second period was a probably should have been a scratch. It's surprising that neither team scored a goal. So what were you thinking coming out of that second period, knowing that both teams had a lot of chances and neither team had potted any of them?
Yeah, so the really key play for me there was about a minute to go in the second period. Like you said, it's 2-0. Badgers have survived the 5-on-3. Oliver Tulka, Badgers freshman center, loses the puck high in the zone near the blue line, and it turns into a North Dakota breakaway. And they talked about this afterward, that a lot of players, a lot of teams might have just given up on that play and said, well, he's got a breakaway, we'll hope our goalie saves it. But Tulk raced back. He was about a step behind at the blue line, but dived and was able to kind of just get his stick in the way of that being a clean shot, and the North Dakota player flubbed it, and it was a pretty clean save for Daniel Hauser. And it's just those kind of efforts are what you have to have in the, when you're going for a championship. Those are the differences between a team that, just, goes through the motions and tries to rely on skill, and another one that knows that it has to put forward the effort to make a difference in a play like that. I mean, Tulk made just a heck of a play, and just a smart, never giving up on something kind of move there, and that. So that was that kind of how you went into the second intermission, and that, like, okay, they're doing the things, the Badgers are doing the things that they need to do to win this game, and that really did carry through most of it.
Todd Milewski is here, State Journal Badger Extra. I know, I keep saying Notre Dame. I'm seeing the text.
You did say Notre Dame, yes.
It's the green jerseys. I said it once last night, and I can't shake it. So I'm sorry. It's North Dakota. I know it's the same colors. It's the same letters. So again, I know very little. Is Wisconsin not particularly good, or is Wisconsin particularly good on the penalty kill? They cleared a 5-on-3 last night. I also noticed they didn't win a lot of face-offs. So is that a product of the matchup or the night, or are they just maybe not a great special teams team?
So here's the crazy thing about that, about the penalty kill especially. 63 teams in college hockey and men's college hockey at the top level. Wisconsin went into the game 62nd in penalty killing. So second from the bottom.
Wow.
There was a stretch in January and February where over 3 games they gave up 8 goals on 12 opponent power plays. Michigan State scored a couple in the regional. So that has not exactly been a strength. That is shortchanging it probably. But so for them to get through that 5-on-3 for essentially 2 minutes was a really, really big point of the game. And North Dakota didn't help themselves. They were pretty stagnant in how they were moving the puck around, really predictable. But the Badgers had some just really big efforts, especially when you factor in that 2 of their penalty killing defensemen were the 2 guys in the penalty box. Mm-hmm. And they lost another defenseman. Ben Dexheimer blocked a shot right in the first about 10 seconds of that 5-on-3 and limped off the ice slowly. So they're down really their top 3 defensemen, plus 2 of their defensemen that they would have out there are also out of the lineup injured. So you're going down to the last of the group here to get people out there to kill off that 5-on-3, and they got it done. Daniel Hauser made a couple of saves. Got that block from Dexheimer. And it really was a big point in the game to just kind of continue the momentum and really kind of keep things in Wisconsin's direction. Because if Notre Dame now you got me saying Notre Dame.
I know.
North Dakota scores on that one. Things probably look a little bit different.
Well, and Daniel Hauser, the goalie, that was my next question, because he just had to make a couple of plays, right? You can't kill a 2-minute 5-on-3 just based on positioning and defense. The goalie's probably going to have to make a couple plays. Tell us about him, what you've learned about him and heard from him, covering him, all year, but especially what you saw last night in that performance.
Well, he's a really quiet guy, and I think that's important for a goalie. That's a pretty good trait for a goalie, because that's someone who, keeps the focus on what it needs to be on. He's not thinking about too much else besides what's coming up, not about what happened or what happened in the last shift, last period, last game, whatever. It's about what's going on right now. And he's had a way throughout this freshman season of just being composed when they needed him. Now, not all the games have been great. He's given up five or more 5 times this season. And so that's been kind of a save percentage and a goals against buster, those games. But you look at how he's performed in the NCAA tournament, the 3 games they've played, and that's exactly what you need from a goalie. You need him to make a couple of really good saves, and you need him to stop the ones that 99% of the goalies are going to stop. That's what they've got. That's so important this time of the year to have good goaltending, and boy, this because they're going up against a really good one in Denver in tomorrow's championship game.
Well, it's funny. I wanted to ask you about the matchup to wrap, because I know there was probably some post-game stuff, but you've covered a bunch of Frozen Fours. You told me a few weeks ago you were going out there whether Wisconsin made it or not, so you know college hockey. I was cheering against Michigan just because if Wisconsin's going to lose a national championship, I don't want it to be against Michigan. It makes me a loser, I know, but that's just my mental. That was my mental gymnastics. What did you think of the nightcap, that matchup specifically, before I ask about how Denver matches up with Wisconsin?
That was a heavyweight battle. That was two teams that know how to play this time of the year, just going after it. And I really could have seen either one of those teams winning. Both of them had chances. It was Denver that eventually got it done. But yeah, just a real. What do you expect to see at this time of the year in the Frozen Four? Teams that are putting it all on the line to try and get into a championship game. And I just really like the way Denver's playing right now in the last couple of months. They've unbeaten in 16 going into the championship game. Got a goalie in Johnny Hicks, who's never lost a college game. He's a freshman, but he came in January for an injured teammate and has been pretty darn good. So that's an interesting matchup to watch tomorrow.
Is there a specific part of this game? Asking for a friend, maybe you don't watch a ton of Badgers hockey, but you've been kind of getting into it, and we want to turn on the game tomorrow night and maybe look for a specific thing to better understand the game. Is there something we should watch for?
Well, I think you have to kind of watch for there's the players that the Badgers need to have a good game are Gavin Morrissey's a center. He's a sophomore. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink in some ways, to use an old phrase. But when they were struggling earlier this season, kind of coincided when he was out with an injury. So having him back and getting him back at his best was really important. He was out for the entire 2 minutes of that 5-on-3 kill, and then about another minute afterwards last night, didn't leave the ice. And so he's the guy that's going to be important to watch. And, some of the big names, Simon Tassi, Quinn Finley, Christian Fitzgerald, those are guys that need to produce, and they've been getting some good production out of them through this run.
Enjoy your time in Vegas, Todd. I appreciate you chiming in on this show and on Bill's show a couple of times this season. We hope that it'd be pretty cool if you can get a men and a women's championship in one season. So thanks for your coverage of it all. We'll look for your stories and your posts this weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Todd Milewski, Badgers Extra State Journal. And I'm sorry, folks. I called them Notre Dame once, and it's just they're green jerseys. So I'm just going to keep doing it. Probably. Luckily, Denver. What am I going to start calling them? Delaware. Hopefully, that one will be a little harder to mess up. We can get back to your phone calls after this. If you want to jump in on Badgers hockey, we can do it from now until 6:00. But man, now would be a great time. We'll have 10 minutes as we wrap up the first hour of the show. If you have any thoughts on last night or what's coming up tomorrow night, otherwise an hour or two. Dontayvian Wicks has been traded. We can get back to that. And I have a couple Bucks thoughts because Doc Rivers, man, is just. He's on a media tour, and I don't get it, and it has very little to do with Doc. So more of your phone calls. We'll continue the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Brian Reynolds, a line drive to left field, to the track, looking up, and clear the deck! Cannonball coming! Anchor down in Wrigley! Greg Reynolds celebrates his son, giving the Pirates a 2-0 lead over the Cubbies.
All I was missing was land ho. There's like 3 or 4 Pirates puns in one home run call. That was Brian Reynolds at Wrigley earlier today against the Cubs. Pirates won 2-0. The Cubs moved to, what's their record? 6-7. I'm not going to dedicate a 7-minute segment here just to laughing at the Cubs' loss. That'd be very immature, please. And you could tell that I'm not being immature because I'm pronouncing it mature. Would an immature player pronounce it like that? I don't think so. But I do have an observation that I think is funny. So here's what was taking place. If you were not paying attention to this game, and you should not have been, here's what was taking place. Shota Imanaga had pitched, I believe, 6 straight scoreless innings. Yep, 6 innings. No hits, 9 strikeouts, 100 pitches through 6 innings. So more cleanly worded, Shota Imanaga had a no-hitter going through 6. Okay, 100 pitches. Now, it's April 10th. You are not going to let that pitcher keep going. Even in July, Craig Counsell might not let that pitcher keep going. Pat Murphy might not let that pitcher keep going. Whoa, but Grant, he's got a no-hitter going. Yeah, are you new? Are you new here? Have you been watching baseball the last couple of years? These pitchers aren't allowed to keep going just because, right? They get about 100, especially in early April. So Craig Counsell does the reasonable right thing, and he goes and he pulls Shota Imanaga. Yes, he had a no-hitter going, but you can't let him keep going. I get that. The funny thing to me is not Craig Counsell pulling a pitcher who had a no-hitter going. That's reasonable baseball management. The funny thing is, and this seemingly has happened a lot. This happened a ton when Craig Counsell managed in Milwaukee. It seemingly happened a bunch. I think it happened early on last year. Craig pulled a guy who had a no-hitter going in March or April. I remember it a year ago. It might have been in the Japan series. I don't think it might have been in the Japan series. It might have been in the friggin' opener. The funny thing is not Craig pulling a pitcher who has a no-hitter going. The funny thing is, without fail, it always seems that whatever reliever Craig brings in makes him look dumb right away. Case in point today, Caleb Thielbar's brought in to pitch the 7th. He gives up a single to Ryan O'Hearn in just 3 pitches, and on the 4th pitch of his outing, gives up a home run to left field. to Brian Reynolds. Again, Counsell makes the right choice. I can't tell you how many times I would try to defend Counsell. I'd come in here and I would, I would overlap with the morning show yahoos. Oh, Grant, your guy Counsell pulled a pitcher again. It's like, well, yeah, but he had 105 pitches. What do you want him to do? It's not Craig's fault. It's not the starter's fault that the bullpen guy came in and yacked it up. But this always seems to happen. Starters going, comes time to pull him, makes sense. Craig pulls him, and then the reliever of choice, the reliever du jour that day, comes in and gags it away and leaves the manager with egg on his face. Unfairly, but there's still egg there. I know the season's only been going, I think, 2 weeks as of yesterday. I just notice a lot of the same themes with the Cubs and with Counsell. And I don't think I'm speaking out of school here. I think you could ask Cubs fans and they'd say, this feels the same. It feels like a lot of hitters underperforming. And Craig Counsell going to the podium after the game and saying, yeah, we got good hitters in the lineup. We got a lot of good hitters and they're not hitting right now. But they will. Like, okay, and then that's the whole season. And to be fair, like they did win 90-some games last season. The funny thing is the Brewers won 11 in a row and 14 in a row. So it doesn't even really feel like it counts, which is funny. That's me being immature. I started the segment quite mature, and now it's descended into me just laughing at the Cubs and Craig Counsell. But it feels very similar. Craigers goes and pulls a pitcher when it's time to pull him, and then the reliever first off the bench makes him look bad. Or, the offense. PCA, by the way, went 0 for 4 today. And the last at-bat should have been an inning double play, but Ryan O'Hearn couldn't scoop it, made him look, made the result look a little bit better. Still 0 for 4, but I was looking for the 0 for 4 with style points, which the fourth being, runners in scoring position. It just feels like the Cubs under Craig Counsell are who they've been the last 2 years. And honestly, who the Brewers were in 2022. We got good hitters. We do. They're not hitting. They will. Like, okay. If you say so, Craigers, I trust you. Bobby in Menominee texts in on the Dontayvian Wicks trade. They got a 5th and a 6th, a 5th this year and a 6th next year. And we'll reset the show with this on the other side of Zach's update. Says, couldn't get a 5th and a 6th from an AFC team. Had to give the Eagles a chance at a really good third wide receiver they desperately needed. I don't think the Eagles' issue is their wide receiver 3. I don't think that's the skeleton key that will unlock their offense and return them to Super Bowl glory. I think their issue is their quarterback might kind of suck. And on top of that, I'm not really sure anyone on the team likes him. To me, that issue is independent of the third wide receiver on the depth chart. I would have liked to keep him, but it's just the contracts and the contract situations of all these guys was starting to be misaligned in a way that I don't think was tenable. Now, I think the Packers beat reaction, Milewski, who I love, and Andy Herman, who I love, all chiming in on Twitter saying they had to do this. They simply had to make a trade. There was no way around this. It's like, well, I don't know that there was no way around it. They just could have kept him. Maybe wouldn't have been wise. Maybe would have been perfect. They had to do it. I don't know that we have to do anything. They have to be the 7th seed. I don't know that they have to trade away a wide receiver. We'll get Zach's update here. 2 minutes. Come back. We'll reset with the Packers trade of Dontayvian Wicks. I have a Bucks thing that I want to discuss. We could talk Brewers. It's a Wisco weekend. They got the state connects, city connects on. All of that coming up in hour 2.
This is the Wisconsin State.
Well, Simon Tassi and Ryan Botterill scored 27 seconds apart in the first period as Wisconsin would defeat North Dakota 2-1 yesterday and put the Badgers in the Frozen Four title game, the first time since 2010. Here's more from head coach Mike Hastings.
Winning a hockey game at this time, bending but not breaking, finding a way to get it done, because at this time of the season, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be Mona Lisa, right? You just got to find a way to make sure that you're living for another day. And this group has talked about this moment for a long time. And again, sometimes you've got to fail to succeed. that happened when we played Ohio State, but this group has done a phenomenal job of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, what do you got for us now?
Up next, the Badgers will face Denver in the championship. 4:30 face-off Saturday from Las Vegas. Turning to the Brewers, they had yesterday off. They'll now host the Washington Nationals for a 6:10 first pitch. The Brewers currently sit first in the National League with a record of 8-4 and are looking to bounce back after they lost their first series of the season, the last series against the Boston Red Sox.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These command and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC Wisconsin.
The Milwaukee Bucks have 2 regular season games remaining. Tonight, their home finale against the Brooklyn Nets. That'll be at 7 o'clock. Then Sunday on the road against the Philadelphia 76ers. And finally, the Green Bay Packers are gearing up for the NFL Draft. We're less than 2 weeks away. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Turnover, watch out, off the bench, shot, score! Oh, baby! Simon says, 1-0 Badgers. And wired that one in, and here they come again! Botterill shot, score! Ryan Botterill, 10th goal of the year, 2-0 Badgers. North Dakota has to hurry. Rickwood, one more chance. All for the net. Wisconsin moves on.
Finding a way to get it done, because at this time of the season, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be Mona Lisa, right? You just got to find a way to make sure that you're living for another day.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
All right, hour number 2, Little Badgers hockey audio. They'll play for the national championship tomorrow night. If you're just joining and you want to talk Badgers hockey, I'll take your call. I don't know that I have a ton of expert analysis to give you, but I'm here for it. Todd Milewski, the State Journal and Badger Extra, joined us at 4:30. So I would recommend, if you're a big Badger hockey fan, go back and listen to that conversation in the podcast when it goes up just after 6 o'clock tonight. You have until tomorrow evening to listen, so you can listen with your morning coffee tomorrow. Of course, you can go back and listen on the Wisco Sports Zone app. You can watch the live stream back as well, not just for this show, but Over the Line in the morning, and Bill Michaels in the afternoon, all the podcasts and live streams and the camp and the swing, everything available there. That's your hub for podcasting, live streams, and of course, listening live, like I'm sure some of you are doing now. It is hidden among everything here. It is a Free Phones Friday, so go ahead, 608-321-1670. But we got some legit Packers news that we discussed back at 4 o'clock. We can kind of reset and begin the second hour with that. The Packers have traded Jaden Reed for a 5th-round pick in this year's draft, which would be 2 weeks from last night, and a 6th-round pick in next year's draft. And not to go off on a tangent here, but just tangentially, I guess, to mention, it feels like there's no interest and hype in this draft. And I don't think it's just because the Packers don't have a 1st-round pick. I don't think that's it. I don't feel the juice. I don't feel the sex appeal. I don't like in previous drafts. I've just been so excited. Like, I can't wait to see what this team does. There's so many interesting players at the top. I can't wait to see where they all go. And I just don't feel that way. I don't know who's picking 2nd. I don't know who's picking 3rd. And I don't know what players are supposed to go 2nd or 3rd. And I'm sure you're like, Grant, the draft coverage has been great. There's so many good props. Okay, well, maybe if you're like in the weeds and listening to draft people, and I know that thing still exists, the draft guides and the draft stories and the podcasts, sure. I'm talking about, I turn on ESPN in the morning, or I turn on NFL Live, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm just talking the biggest of big picture sports consumption. Normally there's draft stories. And just this year, it's like, well, Mendoza's going to the Raiders. It's like, yeah, we knew that in the fall, though. Just not much else. So that's just a It's a side thing. That's a tangent. This is Tom Silverstein, lays it out really well in terms of assets coming and going in board outboard. Packers pick up $2.6 million in cap space with Wicks' departure. He counts $75 million in dead money, $75,000 in dead money, $75 million for Dontayvian Wicks. $75,000 in dead money. Packers are almost $26 million under the salary cap. They have 8 picks this year and should have 10 next year, including 3/4, 2/5, and 3/6. Now they could trade some of those, they can move around, but as of right now, that's how it would line up if the 2027 draft started today. They traded him to the Eagles, if I didn't mention that, to Philly for a 5th in this year's draft and a 6th in next year's draft. I don't think the player is a big story in this. I don't think the Packers would be significantly better with him. I don't think they'll be significantly worse without him. I would love to know behind closed doors what Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst and company are saying. Like, are they ticked they had to trade this guy away? Are they happy to be done with them and are excited to move on? I guess we talked with Mike Clemens in the first hour, called in for just a few. Said he's really respectful, humble guy. I don't think he was a problem. So I don't think they're getting rid of some sort of a diva. I think they're more opening lanes for other guys. Matthew Golden, they're going to pay Christian Watson. They're going to target Tucker Kraft. And my question now is Jayden Reed. What are their long-term thoughts on Jayden Reed? I don't think they should feel as though they need to extend Jayden Reed now just because they didn't extend Dontayvian Wicks. That would be silly to me. I think those things can be independent. I think trading Dontayvian Wicks away this year is more about more targets for Golden, more opportunities for Kraft, Jacobs. It's just a crowded room. I don't think it should change their long-term plan for paying or not paying Jayden Reed, in my opinion, because a lot of the concerns and the reasons that Dontayvian Wicks never worked as a full-time player with a second contract, I have a lot of those same concerns about Jayden Reed. He gets hurt. He's unreliable. He drops passes. Like, well, now that Wicks is gone, they can pay Reed. I'd aim higher if we're going to pay another wide receiver other than Christian Watson. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Darnell the Jump.
Hey, Darnell, what's going on? Hey, did you get your volleyball game in the other night?
It was a softball game.
Oh.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And we lost. So it was super awesome.
Well, first of all, check your tone. Sorry I couldn't remember what sport you do on Wednesday nights. I remembered, so I get credit for that.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was good to get back out there. The rain kind of held off a little bit longer, I think. It rained a little bit, and then it ended up pouring later on at the end of the game. So, yeah, we were all good.
I had fun at the driving range. I hit him well. Thanks for asking. Just what'd you call to talk about? I shouldn't have asked. I'm sorry with the pleasantries.
No, that's okay. I guess I want to respond to the NFL draft is a little flat this year.
Yes.
I think it's just flat in general right now. Unfortunately, at least in my opinion, Fernando Mendoza does not move the needle for me. And I don't really understand. I mean, I get that NFL GMs have to hype up the next guy regardless of everybody has to be a generational talent, right? Everybody has to be you can't miss this guy. He's got to go number one, right? But I think 10 years ago, Fernando Mendoza's a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Am I wrong?
I'm not sure. You're more correct than you are wrong. I don't know that you're fully right, but I like the tree you're barking up here, and I would like to join you. Yes.
Okay. Just because, okay. Does he not remind you, a lot of Russell Wilson?
Yeah, well, and I think that's a great example. Just to talk about Russell Wilson, if Russell Wilson came out in a draft, he would be a top 10 pick now because teams have realized, screw it, we'll just draft quarterbacks early. And if they're not superstars, we'll make it work with them on a rookie contract. You didn't used to think that way. You know what I mean? There would be one or two guys who were top 10, and then you would wait 3rd, 4th. Teams, Bo Nix years ago, Bo Nix went top 15. 10 years ago, Bo Nix is a 3rd, 4th round pick. Not saying it's right or it would have been better, but we've just really changed our framework and how we view these guys. Absolutely.
That's kind of where I'm going, though, where, it used to be that, okay, you had Trevor Lawrence, right? He was the guy from the second he was a junior in high school.
Yes.
And it never really wavered. And it was pretty obvious he was going to go with the number 1 pick, regardless of how people performed over the course of that college football season, right? And people were excited to see, who's going to follow the greatest pick of all time, right? Who's going to try and make Trevor Lawrence pick look stupid. We used to have those kind of discourse, that kind of discourse, and now it's like, okay, like you said, I have no idea who's supposed to go second or third, or if it's a defensive lineman or an edge rusher. I have no idea. All I know is that Fernando Mendoza seems like a really, really underwhelming overall number 1 pick. And I think, obviously, he played a really, really big role in an Indiana national championship, which is like just the weirdest sentence that has ever come out of my mouth. But
yeah,
at the same time, the measurables and the, people wanted to talk about Trevor Lawrence's hand size, and he can throw the ball so fast and so far and all of this.
Yeah,
exactly. And I kind of feel like that part of the game is just kind of gone. At least it seems like that from my perspective, from like an NFL draft coverage and whatnot, like they're just like, oh yeah, well, he went undefeated this year, so that means he's good. You know what I mean? It's that they don't care as much about what they used to care about. And I'm like, okay, I care about stats, and then also, can you throw the ball really fast, really far, and really accurately?
Yeah.
And they don't really care about those things anymore. They care about how he did in his football season, which is fine. I'm just saying that, like you said, like 10 years, 20 years ago, Russell Wilson had a superb end to his Wisconsin career, and he went in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
So the disconnect there is weird to me.
I think Russell Wilson is a player, Darnell. Have a good weekend. I appreciate the call.
Yeah, you bet.
I think Russell Wilson is an awesome example that we should use more. He's a great example of how teams have viewed how they view quarterbacks, have changed how they view quarterbacks. Russell Wilson would be a top 10 pick if he had the same college career and entered the NFL draft now. Now, it worked out well for him. I guess it didn't make a difference, made plenty of money. Bo Nix would have been a 3rd or a 4th round pick years ago. You know what I mean? Teams these days have realized, well, we don't need to love the quarterback. We need to like them. We need to like their personality. We need to think, all right, does the coach like their play style or their fit? And we'll build around them because they're cheap. Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix, even Tua to a lesser degree. Like teams just make it work with quarterbacks now. It used to feel more boom or bust. We either have an awesome quarterback or we're going to draft a linebacker. By the way, I'm looking at this mock. Mendoza 1. I'm just looking at CBS Sports. David Bailey, the edge rusher from Texas Tech. I know that name, number 2 to the Jets. Sonny Styles, number 3. I know that name. Jeremiah Love. I know that name. Carnell Tate, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs. And that's where you lose me. I don't know anyone past that. Mansour Delane, Reuben Bain Jr., Jermod McCoy, Francis Magoa, Monroe Freeling. Yeah, you lose me after 7. I know 7 names, which is a fine amount of names. I could research. I could learn more. There just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of juice here. And I could be wrong. You could disagree. But I'm just telling you how I view it. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, this is Patrick and Oshkosh calling.
Hey, Patrick. What's up?
Hey, some of these people that think Mendoza isn't like the best thrower or whatever, but he led Indiana to a national championship, and the throws he has made, look at that throw against Penn State, and I don't really give a crap about hand size. As a quarterback, I want leadership.
Okay.
I want command of the offense.
Maturity. Yeah, all these things. The off the field stuff.
Yeah. And this is the best year for him to be in the draft because, quite frankly, I don't really give two craps about anybody else behind him. And my number 2 pick is Love out of Notre Dame, which pains me to say because I hate Notre Dame because he's like a Christian McCaffrey type player.
And now Patrick, here's what you hear because it's not cool to draft running backs early. But what they say about him, this is what they said about McCaffrey and Jahmyr Gibbs. He's just a weapon. He's not just a running back. He's an offensive weapon. So they dress it up. But this mock draft has Jeremiah Love going 4th to the Titans,
which Tennessee needs a guy like that. I really think he might not even fall that far. I mean, it's not like it's that far, but still, those are the kind of guys that the NFL teams need. And if you don't draft a quarterback because of your team need, if it's the right fit, he's the type of person that can make your offense way better. So I don't understand teams 2 and 3 if they wouldn't draft him. He's a difference maker.
Yeah.
Because he expands the offense. And you can develop defensive players. There's not one guy in this draft that I can think of, even as a Packers fan, like a defensive lineman or an edge rusher that would make a bigger difference on their team than a guy like Love.
So it's so funny you say this, Patrick, because I appreciate the call. Have a great weekend. We heard a lot about this at the Combine. Sam Brookhouse is making a big stink about this when I had him on, in a good way. He's just a good talking point. I'm not saying that he was whining or, having meltdown. He was banging this drum. Yeah, this is what you hear a lot. Well, if you don't factor in position, Jeremiah Love might be the best player in this draft, right? The best at his position. He's better at being a running back than any of these other guys are at being their position. Positional value is, it's a tricky thing, Patrick. I think a lot of the nerds look at the draft and say, well, if you draft a stud running back, you have a stud running back on a rookie contract. And the savings, the cap savings, the financial savings is 1, 2, 3. But if you draft a stud edge rusher and you get the stud edge rusher on the rookie contract, the savings will be 4, 5, 6, right? You're saving more. It's an economic thing, right? If you have an all-pro, if you have a stud pass rusher on a rookie deal, it's a better deal than having a running back on a rookie deal. I care less about that than I care about, look at what the Raiders did last year with the running back from BYU. He didn't make a difference because their O-line wasn't all that good and their quarterback sucked and their offensive coordinator didn't know what to do with them. So I think it's an easy thing to say. And even I'm reading this mock draft at CBS Sports saying, well, you need to surround Cam Ward with talent. Now, the Titans might be in a better position than the Raiders were last year to draft a running back. But to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to draft a running back, even if he's a stud, if you don't feel like you can block for him, if you don't feel like you have the quarterback, you don't feel like you have the scheme to highlight him, and maybe the Titans feel that way or the Cardinals feel that way, at the top of the draft. I care less about the economics of it all because while that stuff is important, I just don't want salary numbers to be completely and totally driving which 21-year-old my team selects. It can be a factor, and I think edge rusher, receiver, right? There are more expensive positions that you should maybe try to target with top picks. But I don't want numbers. I don't want salary cap figures and crunches to be driving my draft picks. I just think that's a boring, non-fun way to talk about the sport. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Louis in Eau Claire.
Hey, Louis, what's up? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Grant. Getting to the Wisconsin hockey thing there. I'm the most casual of hockey fans, especially college hockey. But I found myself really enjoying watching both the Michigan State and North Dakota games here. It's fun when your team's a little bit of an underdog.
Yes.
And you go and you overperform and you win. It's been a slog to be a Wisconsin sports fan here for. I don't want to make it sound like we're a tortured fan base like Cleveland or Buffalo or something like that. But the last time the Badger football team overachieved in the postseason, you could argue was 2014 Outback Bowl against Auburn.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. Like, when was the last time one of our teams overachieved? And the Brewers maybe do every year, but Jordan Love's rookie year as a starter, but they won one playoff game, Louis. So that's a fascinating thing to talk about. How fun is it to watch a team when they're overachieving? I don't know with some of the expectations that have been on our state teams that we've had that opportunity a whole lot recently.
No, and the Brewers have overachieved continually during the regular season, but in the last 15 years, their two postseason wins were against the Rockies.
Yeah.
And then your hated rival Cubs, not a lot there. The Packers, take out the Cowboys, there's really not a lot of underdog postseason success. basketball, NCAA tournament, the Badgers have lost, I think, 5 or 6 straight as kind of the higher seeded teams. I don't know. I think that was it's certainly more fun to watch that way. I hope we get back to overachieving a little bit more here in the postseason.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed. Louis, have a great weekend. I've really enjoyed watching Badger hockey these last couple games. It's a good product, and I'm not a hockey expert, but I watch a little NHL. I've been trying to watch like 2 NHL games a week just to keep my tether there. So when the postseason starts, I feel like I can enjoy it a little bit. I don't know if college just has more chaos. The possessions change more. It feels like in the NHL, it feels very soccerish. We're going to pass backwards. We're going to control. We're going to go slow. We're going to hold possession. We're going to be methodical. And these last couple college games, it's like it's just nuts to butts, balls to walls constantly. The possession is changing hands, and it doesn't feel like we're getting a bunch of repeated icings. It's just a more kind of explosive game. And maybe that's just Wisconsin. Maybe that's just these last few games. Maybe that's the sport. I don't know because I don't watch enough. But I've found it to be a little bit more exciting brand than some of the recent regular season NHL games that I've been watching, just because it's a little more chaotic, which makes sense, I guess. It makes sense, I guess, considering college versus pros. We'll take a break if you're on hold, I promise. It's 3 minutes. I'll get right to you on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show continues on. It's a Wisco weekend at American Family Field. I'm seeing pictures. They got the City Connects on. The lineup's out. So we'll have baseball back tonight. On Monday, we'll have another full series to react to. But tonight, the news, Dontayvian Wicks to Philly for a 5th in this year's draft and a 6th in next year's draft. Batters hockey with a big win last night. Todd Milewski was great in the first hour, so catch that in the podcast if you missed it. And I do have a Bucks thing I want to talk about just because I got some questions, man. I'm confused, I have to admit. But first, one more call. Thank you for sitting through the break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, my man, it's Lee in the Western City. How you doing?
Lee, oh, just outstanding. You'll be happy to know, and I keep telling Bill this, but the road to Viroqua has begun. I hit the driving range on Wednesday, so we should be getting in tip-top shape to see you and your countrymen at Viroqua Hills in just a couple of weeks here.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, I'll tell you one thing you don't need to practice with, that 5-iron. I mean, that thing is on fire. The 3, all right, but the driver was pretty straight. Maybe get some distance out of it.
I need more distance on my drives. That is my issue. I can, for the most part, hit it pretty straight. It's time for me to grow up a little bit and get some more distance. So that's what I'm working on.
Just watch some YouTube golf videos. The Bryson has some good ones. Your previous callers, it was nice to hear from Mike Clemens. He's attending Doc Rivers' funeral down there in Milwaukee, I hear. I hope he's dressed in black. Your other callers nailed it with what are the Jets and Raiders going to do? I mean, they don't have an offensive line. They've been nailing quarterbacks to the cross, consistently for the past, 25 years. The Raiders ruined David Carr. I'm convinced he was a good quarterback. Jets they tried to ruin Geno and Sam. They might have ruined Zach. I don't know. But Sam, he went, and did he just win a Super Bowl where Geno he had success out in Seattle?
Yeah.
And not even on that cheap of a contract. I know the old Seahawks did it with like a rookie contract and a great defense. Sure. But I'm actually wondering, were you watching the Masters at all today?
A little bit. It's kind of something I need to sit down and completely watch. Otherwise, I just get lost and turned around. But I see that Rory's absolutely smoking everybody. It looks like he's playing great.
Yeah, I'm not, me, I'm patriotic. I like rooting for the American guys, and I respect, Ratty Mack, the, talented, prodigal son, that's how you say it, of Ireland. And,
Yeah.
I know, must be nice for Rory. You go through, you lose majors over, you have a hot start and then you lose for a bunch of years. Then you go get some strange from some reporter, allegedly, and then you file for divorce. And then, you get back with your, woman, you keep all your money, and it's like, I'm going to start winning majors now. Yeah, it must be nice. I know that I heard Bill Michaels picked the Hunchback of Nottingham. Tommy Fleetwood to win for the Masters. Have you seen him out there today? It looks like his mother, girlfriend, dressed him in his grandfather's clothes. The pants are just something else. I respect his game too, but unfortunately, as an American, I'm going to have to root for the cheating double chin, no neck, Patrick Reed. Yeah, if I had to pick between those two, an American, it's going to be just about anybody. Speaking of Americans, I saw, Dustin Johnson, he's out there finally making like a pretty good comeback. He kind of faded off into live. He said he's refocused on golf these past few years. I wonder what he's like. What were you focused on? Like stuffing hundreds of millions of dollars in your bank account from live?
That's exactly what he was focused on. Yes.
Or maybe he was focused on, what he goes home to every night. It would be refreshing if he kind of became more relevant. He's always easy to root for, even though he walks like a camel down the fairway, if you've ever seen him. And it'd be nice to go to, any clubhouse in golf and to hear about the guys talking about, wow, he hits his 3-wood, farther than, most guys hit their driver, instead of them talking about the wood he's given to Wayne Gretzky's daughter at night. So I just want to wish you a happy weekend, and I'll be rooting for Badger hockey. I'm glad you're getting into it. I watched a lot of it with the Russian, basically in-laws at this point. But yeah, we root for Ovechkin. They're having a crap season, so it's nice that Wisconsin came through and picked up the hockey. And have a good weekend. And thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you too, Lee. Always. This is a good Masters rundown. I wonder. So, no Phil, no Tiger. Scheffler where is he on here? I'm scrolling. Is Koepka really in front of Scheffler on the leaderboard? Again, I'm watching here and there. It's hard for me to lock in on Friday at work. Just because I leave and then I come back. I'm like, okay, who am I watching? What hole are we on? Now, I would think that the rights holders for the Masters, and I think it's a mix of CBS and Amazon, which is such a puke. I hate that it's on Amazon, would have to be pretty happy with Rory McIlroy leading the way, because I think after Tiger and Phil and Scheffler, like McIlroy might even, I don't know, I'm not a golf guy, but Scheffler wins a ton, but I feel like McIlroy is a better story, especially after last year. If I were to tell someone, like if I was with a couple friends and none of them were big sports fans, you know, I'm in a gathering at a friend's place. I say, hey, can we throw the Masters on? I just want to see. And they're like, oh, who's leading? I feel like if I said Rory McIlroy, most would go, oh yeah, I know who that. Yeah, that's the story. And they would know the name Scotty Scheffler, but I think Rory McIlroy, like if I was shelling out a bunch of money to broadcast the Masters, I'd be pretty happy with Rory McIlroy having a great Friday going into the weekend. He's minus 11. Next closest is Burns and Reed at 6 under. Pretty good result. Interesting. For folks who need a little star power, need a little name recognition at the top of the board, there's some of you who are like, oh, I love golf. I don't need Rory McIlroy. I'm just watching for the golf. Okay, well, cool. I will too, just because I love the sights and the sounds. And I was talking with a friend of all of my college and high school friends. I think the guy that I always ask golf stuff about, a buddy from Eau Claire, and I was telling him about my experience at the golf simulator the other night. Not the simulator, the driving range. And he's jaded as a golfer because he thinks too many people are getting into it. He thinks we need to shrink the game. You always hear we're growing the game. He said, no. We need to shrink the game of golf. And I know a lot of purists or golf fans have looked at what's gone on at the Masters so far this year with Jason Kelsey and with the hats that are a little barstoolish. With all due, they're a little barstoolish. We've looked at this and said, I don't know if we need to. I don't know if we need all this. I don't know if we need to do to Augusta what was done to the Waste Management Open. That was a cool thing. The Waste Management Open, by the way, is such an amazing example of what our society does to things. It's like, oh, this is really cool. This is a cool thing we have. Well, what if we completely overdo it and saturate it and the corporations get involved? We talked about this last week with April Fools. It's like April Fool's jokes, pranks can be kind of funny until Target or Bank of America, until the corporations get involved. It's like, it's not cool anymore. It's not fun anymore. We don't need a statement from, Walmart on April Fool. We don't need content from our grocery stores. It just feels like we kind of killed the Waste Management. It's like, okay, now every college-aged white man went there and blacked out like a child. It's like, I thought it was just, cool thing to go to with some friends and have a couple of beers, but naturally you had to ruin that. So I think people are looking at Augusta. Not that it's become the party spot, but in a different way. It's like now the merch is kind of Jason Kelsey and Kevin Hart, because of course, just throw those guys on. That's how we grow the game. Shrink the game. Shrink the game. I'm a shrink the game guy. I have some Bucks questions. Maybe you can help me answer them next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
In 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What does Giannis want?
Oh boy, I don't know, and we talk probably more than anyone. Dan, it's a tough one because he has done such a great job here in Milwaukee, right? And yet he still wants to win a title, and clearly we have to do a better job here with our roster to make that even look like a possibility. And if we can't do that, then he's going to look outward. And so I think that's a twofold answer. I think, one, if we had all the pieces here, I have no doubt he'd want to stay here. But we don't. And so that puts him in a tough spot.
So, by the way, I doubt that Giannis would stay with the right pieces. I don't think those comments to Lori Nickel or Jim Ozarski, who are great, I don't find those comments from Giannis to be genuine. Not the point of the conversation we're about to have. I don't want to talk about Giannis' future. But when Doc Rivers says, well, if we put the pieces around him, he'll stay. Or when Lori Nickel or Jim Ozarski quotes Giannis as saying so. And I know Jim said this week, I've known Giannis forever. I believe that to be genuine when he says, if the Bucks build around me, I'll stay. And Jim believes that. I don't. Jim's probably got more reason. I'm just telling you from 10,000 feet. I think Giannis is telling us one thing. He's telling the local beat and the fans and the organization one thing. And I think behind closed doors he's saying another. And he's building the life rack to get out of here. That's not what I want to talk about, though. I want to talk about the fact that Doc Rivers is on the friggin' Dan Patrick show this morning. And he did FanDuel TV with Michelle Beadle and Lou Williams, too. I'm confused. Okay? The way I see it, and I'm far from a communications professional. Although, actually, you know what I am? That's exactly what I am. I am a communications professional. I have a communication study degree. with an emphasis in media studies, and I work a job that I think uses that degree, and I get paid. So I am a communications professional. Doesn't mean I'm a good one, but I think in the literal sense of the word, that is what I am. Here's what I don't get. This Bucs season has been a catastrophe. Awful. Terrible. Giannis has missed half of the games, and they have been non-competitive now. They're getting the doors blown off. They've sucked. The Miles Turner signing has not worked. I don't think Doc Rivers likes him or knows what to do with him. Ty Windish told us about that a couple weeks ago. He's like, I think there was a disconnect in the offseason. Signing Miles Turner is fine, but then Doc Rivers doesn't really seem to use him like you would use him if you were bringing him in and paying a bunch of money. So this season's been a nightmare. We are now so close to the end of that season. The team has completely let go of the rope. They're full tank. Kevin Porter Jr. is out. Giannis is out. They're sitting everyone they can at any given opportunity. They're not going to medically clear Giannis to play. They are going to lose out, hit the offseason, replace Doc Rivers, whether they fire him or most likely put him in a front office position, because why would Doc go? Force the Bucs to fire you and pay you, or give him a new job and make sure he gets that money. Probably trade Giannis and start the rebuild. That's the path. Okay? That's what's going on here. And in my communications professional opinion, the best way to go about this would be to make as little noise as possible. Half of the NBA is tanking. It's not a problem. I mean, it sucks, and it's a stain on the league, and it's a middle finger to the people who buy tickets, but half the teams are doing it. So the sports gods and Adam Silver and the NBA will not smite the Bucs. No one's going to lead First Take talking about the Bucs. They're just blending in to the bottom half of the league that's in the tank. Go about it very quietly. Make no headlines. Hold as few press conferences as possible. Say nothing on the record that's salacious or inflammatory. Just get to the offseason. Just get through. Replace Doc. Probably acquiesce to Giannis's demand that he wants to be traded, even though he won't publicly admit that. And he will say the opposite to the local media, but the local media will put it out, and Bucs fans believe it because, you know, the wool is over their eyes. That's what the Bucs should be doing. The thing at the top of my list of let's not do this would be Doc Rivers' media tour during his last week on the job. That would be number one. That would be on the number one item on my list of things I would not do. I would not do a Doc Rivers media tour. And he's on the Dan Patrick Show today, and he's on FanDuel TV. Now that thing is on its way out as well, so I guess good marriage. Here he is with Dan Patrick. You'll hear the question. I don't understand what this is for or who this is for.
Are you still having fun? This has been a pretty tough, trying year, but
yeah, this has been a rough year. Nothing like, if you read Sham's article the other day, that article was so far off base that it was nowhere near like as hectic or what toxic situation as it looks. But it's still losing, Dan. This is my first losing season in 20 seasons. That's a hell of a run. Losing is no fun for anyone. And then the Giannis situation has been really rough for everyone.
Let's talk about that.
Giannis. So this has not been a fun year, but every year is not going to be fun. And you don't have great years every year, and you just deal with it. So I look at it, I put it in that compartment, and not nearly as bad as it may look on the outside.
So this is what I'm confused about. Why is Doc Rivers doing a media tour to push back on the things that have been reported by Shams? Shams puts out this long story about the chaos and the unhappiness in the Bucs locker room and the Bucs organization. Bad luck for the team, right? Wait 3 days, it'll go away. Wait 3 days, it'll go away. You know what'll happen? Mike Vrabel will be caught hand-holding with Diana Rossini. Wait 3 days, Dontayvian Wicks will be traded, smaller scale. Wait 3 days, the Brewers organization will put out City Connect jerseys that are really meant to represent the whole state, and every resident of Milwaukee will take it as a slight because it's what they do, and they'll lose their absolute minds. Wait 3 days, and the NFL draft is closer. Wait 3 days and people will stop caring because it's what they do. We don't need to respond to anything. Let Shams and ESPN write the story. People will go, unbelievable. And then they'll move on. They won't care. They'll stop caring. We don't need a rebuttal, least of all from Doc Rivers. Here's Doc Rivers again on his media tour today. FanDuel TV with Michelle Beadle, Chandler Parsons, I believe, and Lou Williams about the anecdote from the locker room that Shams reported about Doc telling his players, Google me.
That is taken so out of context because I was kind of referring to, and I don't want to get too deep into it. This is the other thing. I wouldn't say anything about the meeting because it's no one's business. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that allegedly there were players who talked, and I think it was more agents who talked than players, but that's for another day. You know, there's always one, though, Lou. When you have articles like this, you know, there's one guy talking, which is pretty obvious if you read the article who it is. But, you know, it was taken out of context to what I was trying to say. I had a guy that kept talking about his stats. And so I was basically saying the same thing. Well, I have stats too, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So it was more taken out of context of what was said.
Nobody cared. Doc, you're not going to be coaching in a week. Cam Thomas isn't here anymore because he sucks. He's a chucker, which is what I said when they brought him in, and then he scored 30, and Bucs fans were like, they fixed the team. I'm like, no, they didn't. Doc, who cares? We'd already moved on. Why are the Bucs letting him do a media tour? It makes no sense. It's just more publicity for a team that should want the opposite right now. Here's another fun anecdote. Hey, let's put the Bucs in the headlines again. Doc Rivers talking about how Shams called the Bucs. He was all angry.
Well, you know, it's funny. Oprah Winfrey had a great line years ago. When you read her article, always think about what's the intent? What's the purpose of the article? You know? And so you guys probably know about this. A few people know about this. I made a joke before All-Star. If you remember that, Michelle, where I said Giannis should trade Shams.
Oh, of course. We all remember. NBA All-Star Week, a notoriously memorable event in our sports calendar, Doc.
That's so personal that he actually called the Bucs and yelled at them to take it down.
Shut
then the
up.
NBA calls,
No,
the
he
NBA
didn't.
called the Bucs. No, it was a mess. The NBA calls the Bucs and are like,
Shams.
Shams wants us to tell you this, but we really don't care. And the NBA, and then the NBA posted it. So I've heard from 10 different people that have said, oh, Shams is going to do a revenge article on you guys and on you. And I was like, okay, I don't care. So that's the only thing I didn't like about it. It's the purpose of, I read that article. I'm like, what is this article for? So anyway, it's part of our life.
We tried to work on him, Doc. We're gonna get him to loosen up. He's wound very tightly for
He's
young.
very tight. He's very young.
Yeah.
It's the way
very
I
young.
And emotional, but hopefully he'll grow.
I'm glad we're talking about a back and forth with a basketball writer as the season is crumbling around the team. Like, the Bucs should be trying in every way possible to just go quietly into the night. We're just going to tank our way through this last weekend. Yeah, the fans will be mad at us. Giannis will be mad at us. We'll keep it quiet. We'll replace Doc. Start a rebuild this summer because Giannis doesn't want to stay here. And we'll move on. Parading Doc Rivers around to take pot shots at Shams Charania. Well, he had to write a piece to get back at us. Yeah, because that's what I do. You know, when I feel slighted by someone, I'm going to sit down and write a 2,000-word story to get back. Like, what is this? Who's this for? The Bucs organization is just so asleep at the wheel right now. They just don't care. They're checked out. Out to lunch, as they say. The second that Giannis got hurt, they said, screw it. We'll just start looking at draft picks. Which, by the way, speaking of draft picks, I saw people tweeting about A.J. Johnson the other night. He's terrible. Terrible. John Horst's last first-round pick, or one of his last first-round picks. So, I mean, they can all go. They can clean everybody out of that building, except for the broadcasters, because I love Justin and Dave. They can clean everybody out of that basketball operations side. Oh, it's the last week of the season. Let's have Doc do a media tour. Brilliant. Sure. They don't care. They're asleep at the wheel. Out to lunch. Your final thoughts next. Get to your texts, final thoughts on the Dontayvian Wicks trade, Badgers hockey, everything we've discussed so far, and a little Jimmy Buffett, because after all, fins up. It is Friday. Last segment of the show coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Not only going out to Wisconsin and the great Midwest, we're going around the world tonight, Parrot Head.
Final segment, the Wisco Sports Show, fins up. Can I share what I think is an interesting development in the Diana Rossini story? Our friend Ryan Glassby on the show yesterday. Some reporting at Front Office Sports. And other outlets have got it. I see Florio has a story. Front Office Sports. Glass-Steagall had it first. Those are the rules. We should play by them, correct? Who had it first? He is reporting in Front Office Sports that the Athletic is probing Diana Rossini's explanation about the photos with Mike Vrabel that were published in the New York Post. Rossini and Vrabel were photographed in late March at a luxury resort. Photos were published by the Post. So the Athletic said, we're not going to let her report on anything. We're looking into her explanation of why this happened, which is very interesting to me. I was listening to Albert Breer talk about this morning. Albert Breer, who I would say is one of, half a dozen to a dozen people in the league on Rossini's level, people who really are tapped in and know what's going on around the league. And he was saying this has to be a private investigator. because no one who's staying at this resort was like going to dedicate a day to monitoring what they were doing, taking pictures. And some of these pictures are like telescopic lens. They're up on the roof. No, I want to know who hired a PI. Was it Vrabel's wife? Was it Rossini's husband? Was it someone who works at a competing outlet with The Athletic? I don't know. Sports Illustrated, ESPN. I don't know. Maybe it was some team that felt spurned by Diana Rossini. This whole thing is very interesting to me. And it's a bummer because, Vrabel and Rossini have families. But I'm not judging their nocturnal activities. I'm trying to figure out why this happened. Then these photos are getting shopped around, and TMZ says, well, no, we're not going to touch it. Which, since when does TMZ, whatever, that was interesting to me. TMZ is like, we don't do that type of journalism. Like, yes, this is what you do. Diana Rossini will not be reporting during internal investigation. Now I'm looking at Florio's story. An unnamed source with knowledge of the situation told the Post that new details from the Page 6 report and information from the investigation raised additional concerns that are now being reviewed further. The investigation is ongoing. Added a source to the Post. Her coverage is being reviewed. That process is expected to take time. She will not be reporting in the interim. Ryan Glassbeagle of Front Office Sports reported on Friday afternoon the existence of an internal investigation. He noted a prior front office report that Rossini's contract expires in August 2026. Now that's interesting. The situation is just insane. This whole thing. They're in Sedona at this very fancy place. They say there are other people there, but there aren't people in any of the pictures. And even if there are other people there, like, why is Mike Vrabel driving 2 hours north of Phoenix just to say hi to Diana Rossini? Even if they're friendly, even if he's a source and they talk often. My best friend from college, I lived with him twice. One of my one or two best friends from college. Not that it matters to you. Let's just say my best friend from college lives up near Manitowoc. I had not seen him since last February when I was there for work. I worked it in when I was up in Green Bay for work. Him and his wife had a kid months ago. I haven't seen him. I hadn't found the time. I hadn't made my way. It's 2.5 hours north of Madison. It's not that far, but it's 2.5 hours. People don't just drive 2.5 hours just to see someone, is my point. Well, yeah, I mean, I was in Phoenix. I thought I'd just buzz up to Sedona. Just say hey to Diana Rossini and her friends. What I don't understand is what The Athletic, what kind of course could they have to, what dirty reporting? We're not in with that kind of reporting. I don't know. I wish I could offer better opinions or better analysis of this, but I'm really just kind of interested to sit back and to see what happens. Same as the rest of you, I think. I'm not judging the nighttime activities of others. I find it compelling theater. That's all. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the Brewers games. Brewers Nationals, see if they can get back on track. Terang, Yelich, Contreras all in the lineup tonight. Mitchell batting fourth. Another Blake Perkins game. Okay. In 2026, we're doing Blake Perkins games. All right. Enjoy the weekend. Have an excellent Friday night. We'll be back on Monday to talk about it all. Talk to you Monday at 4. Thanks for listening always. Bye.